Are we raising children who do not know themselves? Are we comfortable raising children who know Cinderella but not Anansi the spider? Who believe love looks like a prince kissing a girl who is sleeping instead of secret glances at the river? Who can describe a winter in New York or London but not the dry season in Kitui or Lake Turkana? Who can name American presidents but not African freedom fighters, who don't know Mekatilili or Menza, who do not know Queen Njinga, yet they can tell you every superhero character in the Marvel and Disney worlds. Who know Mchongwano, maybe, but do not relate Mchongwano to the similes and metaphors they are taught in school. Who think Mchongwanos are not similes and metaphors, powerful ones, because they were not written by Shakespeare. They are not as cool as a cucumber, as though a cucumber is any cooler than a courgette. Their fairy tales are of castles and snow and, foreign climes, not baobabs and moonlit evenings by the Indian Ocean. Their curtains, their bed sheets, their duvet covers feature Disney characters, Mickey Mouse and Minnie Mouse, and princesses dressed in pink, princesses with blonde hair. Kenyan children, they don't have Kokoriko on their sheets. They certainly don't have the matatu from Watamu that drove into the sea. It's as if we have no stories ourselves to imprint on the minds of our children. So their cartoon friends are pandas and polar bears, not the awe-inspiring pangolins that are being decimated from our wildlife. In fact, we think that it takes whites to save our wildlife, even though really the evidence of our eyes is that only Africa has preserved wildlife at the scale, especially the large mammals. The only lions I've seen in London are stone ones. Our children can name Pokemon characters, but they don't know African inventors. And we have the most incredible African inventors. Philip Emeagwali of Nigeria developed the world's fastest computer back in 1989. At that time, he helped discover how to use computers to forecast weather. Rachel Zimbande of Malawi invented a process of creating off-grid electricity using corn husks. Ekere of Nigeria invented pavement tiles that generate electricity from footsteps. Therese Kirongozi of DRC invented humanoid traffic robots. There are many inventors from Africa. In fact, some people think that the written language was brought to Africa by Europeans. But Africa had long had written languages. And I'm not talking just about hieroglyphics that for some reason people seem to hive off from Africa. They think Egypt is not a part of Africa and did not have Black people involved in creating the marvels that we see of those cultures in Egypt. But there were other written languages, like the Zibidi of Nigeria, that the Ekpe and Igbo people have used since the 16th century. In fact, some people say the pictograms from that written language dates back to the 5th century. The challenge that we have is that many believe, not just children, but adults too, that Africa had no history before colonization. When in fact, the Swahili city-states, for example, were trading with the world, including China, there's evidence, long before Vasco da Gama was born, long before it was a whisper between his parents' ears. So why does this happen? Of course, the colonial legacy that has dictated and fed our education systems, there are global power imbalances that favor Western media and the consumption of Western media. here in Nairobi, in Kenya. Economic systems that favor Western norms so that those who are educated in the West are favored by the system. The education systems themselves, especially we've seen amongst the rising middle classes of Kenya and other African countries, these favor Western models, Western content. There are schools here in Kenya where children, African children like me, are born not knowing their own history. The other day, an American friend was telling me, an American academic visiting Kenya, and she told me how in an Uber, she asked the young Uber driver, tell me about the Mau Mau. And the Uber driver said, what is that? And my friend thought maybe it's her accent, and she tried again. And still the Uber driver said, no, we were not taught that. And no, my parents are Kikuyu, but they never talked about that. So I don't know what it is. Think about that. It's a form of mental colonization that Ngugi wa Thiong'o talked about, but we're seeing it being manifested more and more, especially amongst the middle class and the wealthy in Kenya. Of course, independence only happened 60 years ago. So there is a generation that still that experience these and are still feeling that trauma directly from their own lived experiences. But as the generation, my generation, and the generation that has come after that, who've experienced that trauma, just in terms of the silences that surrounded any conversations about it. So it is not surprising that we don't know. But it is time to break that silence. When there's mental colonization, what happens is that the foreign culture is presented as superior to ours. The local culture is devalued, seen as outdated, irrelevant, and maybe even boring. The power dynamics, of course, reinforce this. You do not see people in parliament dressed in their glorious African wear. You do not see the symbols of success looking African in an identifiably African way. The economic systems reward the adoption of the foreign culture. And this is why I think that African stories have a very powerful role, especially when it comes to informing, inspiring, and helping our children see themselves, recognize themselves as the powerful, wonderful, talented, glorious individuals that they really are. When TV shows show them Western lifestyles as the dream, foreign fashions as the trend, schools reward Western aspirations, Western cultural knowledge. When companies promote foreign beauty standards and success seems to mean more foreign, are we surprised that children then associate better with Western, modern with Western, two different things, modern and Western? They think black is not beautiful. Sadly, many believe black should be bleached. They see traditions, like I said, as old-fashioned, boring. They think learning French is more important than learning Luo or Igbo. When in fact in Kenya, I've always thought it would have been better if we had to learn a foreign language. Why not Hindu? Because at least with Hindu, there are Indians, significant number of Indians in Kenya whom we could practice with, whom we could do business with, as Indians are such a powerful force in industry. When you think that success means leaving Africa, think what that is saying to our children. They miss seeing African excellence. They adopt private solutions, which in a way is anti the Ubuntu that is our culture. So private solutions to the problems that bedevil all of us. When we have public problems, like electricity problems, we buy our own generator. When we have public problems like lack of water, we dig our own borehole, exacerbating the problem that we're having with the water table, like here in Nairobi. Because our whole mindset is kind of away from our traditional Ubuntu thinking. But most of all, I think the danger of lacking our stories is captured, I think, most powerfully in Chimamanda Adichie's Danger of a Single Story, when she says that to insist only on foreign stories is to rob our children of the ability to see themselves as capable, worthy, important, valuable beings. In Binyavanga Wainaina's, the late Binya's seminal essay, How to Write About Africa, he poked fun at the way the West portrays Africa, the stereotypical ways that they class us, they classify us, the way that they see us through such a narrow lens. Are we doing any different? Are we painting the excellence that we want our children to manifest? The awesomeness, the depth of our power that has helped us survive everything that has been thrown at us over the millennia, or certainly since the colonization era. When our children see, read, and admire what is foreign, and trust me, they do. When you think, which is the single best-selling title in Kenya, children's books? Single best-selling title is Diary of a Wimpy Kid, followed by others like it, which is why, of course, in the retail outlets, in the textbook centers and all that, what you see, the books that you see that children are asking for, buying at very high prices, by the way, are these foreign books. They're displayed right at the front as you enter the big shops. And yet, when we try to place our books that we think are equally imaginative, equally good, and equally expensive, we're not given a hearing. They're just not there. They're not seen as relevant because they're African. What is that saying about us? Because it's not just about stories. Stories shape how Africans, children, see themselves, what they consider beautiful, what values they have, how they seek solutions, how they will lead us when they are grown. We have to break this cycle of feeding our children predominantly foreign literature, feeding our minds predominantly foreign literature. And I speak to my fellow Kenyans because I know that this applies to us more than perhaps many other places on this continent. We need to break the cycle. At Storymoja, we do have a solution. We are working on a series of historical fiction books for children, the Shizu series. I want you to find out more about the Shizu series. Join the Shizu movement. Discover Shizu books. Read. Reclaim our African history. And rise.